My name is Batya Blumenthal. I'm the branch supervisor of the Putterham location of the Public Library of Brookline. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us today, as well as thank our friends of the Brookline Library for supporting this program and programs like it. We'd also like to thank our community partners, Brookline Interactive Group, for streaming this program to their Facebook page, their YouTube page, and local cable access channel 3 on RCN and Comcast. As always, participation in this online yoga program could result in injury. Not all exercises presented here are suitable for everyone. These exercises are not intended to substitute for proper medical care or advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any exercise program. The creators, teachers, and producers assume no responsibility for injuries from participation in this program. And as always, here's Keith.
Hi, good morning. So welcome to yoga. Let's start in our seated mountain pose and sit up nice and tall. So we talk a lot in yoga about foundational poses, and this is one of them. You could also do it standing if you're so inclined. What I do like about sitting is it gives me a chance to practice really good posture when I'm seated, because oftentimes I think everyone has a tendency to forget about our posture when we're busy doing something seated, whether it's eating or sitting at the computer. So just sitting up nice and tall, focusing on feeling the feet. And if you're standing, you won't feel the buttocks. But if you're sitting, you'll feel the buttocks in the chair. And we want to feel balanced on the left and the right side. So I feel as if if I had a line that went up the center, the parts of me that are on either side of the line would be kind of hanging down and feeling balanced, almost like as if you imagine the old-fashioned balance where you put one thing on one side and the other, same idea. So it's nice and even. And give a little bit of, let's bring the feet so that, make sure the ankles are right underneath the knees, and the knees are about in line with the hips. I like mine a little bit slightly wider than the hips, but I have kind of narrow hips. So you'll notice that my legs go out slightly, but I'm still have my toes pointing straight ahead. And then I'm going to actually bring my hands like this, and I'm going to put my fists together like this, a gentle fist. So my hands are going to be firm like this, and I'm going to put it right on the middle of my thighs, and I'm going to very gently squeeze the hands. So I don't want to squeeze so hard that my hands collapse. I want to keep my hands firm so that it maintains the space here, and there's a little bit of effort going on squeezing the legs. Think about maybe 20 or 30, at most 40% effort. So less than half effort. And what you're going to feel is, you're going to feel these muscles on the inner thighs firm up and they pull together. And that's going to help support us as we extend up. So try it again. You leave the hands there if you want, or you could even rest the hands on the legs. And then think about squeezing the legs slightly together isometrically. So the thighs are going to stay in the position, but I'm going to actually activate the muscles here. If you have trouble activating the muscles, put your hands there again and try it again. So we need to make this connection between the mind and the muscle and get it to contract when we want it to. It's easy to do for our hands. If I open my hand and I close it like this, I think most of us it's easy to not even, I can close my eyes without looking, but this one may take a little more practice. So think about sitting up nice and tall, and then if you can get the muscles working there, go ahead and bring the hands right to the side of the chair. And fingertips can be nice if you have enough room on the edge of the chair. If you don't, you could also hold on to the chair like this with my hand on the edge. If you have arms on your chair, you put your hands on your arms like this and press. So I'm going to use my hands to help lift my heart up and open the chest. So I'm pressing gently with my fingertips, and at the same time, so this is me sort of collapse, and then I'm going to start to lift and notice how the shoulders move back. And we also want to release the shoulders down. So let's try moving the hands off to the side, and then go ahead and let the hands hang down for a moment, and try the same action again with the hands hanging. So I'm going to move the shoulders back and then let the arms hang down so that the shoulders move down and the neck extends up. Especially think about the back of the neck, right back here, the muscles along the back of the neck. Think about them lengthening up. And doing it without the chin dropping and without the chin lifting up. So we'd like to keep the chin level with the floor. So I'm rolling my shoulders open, letting the arms dangle down, letting the weight of the arms help pull the shoulders down to get some length, and this feeling of lengthening in the sides of the neck, in the back of the neck, but a soft throat, relaxed face and eyes, soft jaw, tongue, and throat. And if you find that you're clenching here, you can even take your hands like this, and you can rub the jaw for a moment. I'll turn sideways so you can see. So anytime we bring a little extra attention to a part of the body and we gently rub it, it helps to relax that part of the body. So we'd like to be able to do our mountain pose with the lower part of the body efforting, even all the way up through the crown of the head, with the neck, the face, and the eyes relaxed. So all the little muscles around the eyes are soft. The muscles in the face are soft. The tongue is relaxed. If your hands are resting on your legs, then we want the fingers and the hands and the arms to be relaxed. So the weight of the arms is hanging down from the shoulders. And we'll stay here for a few more breaths. Don't forget about the inside of the thighs. Remember, there's a slight effort there, slight effort. You might even think about the idea of compacting the hips together, a slight squeeze of the buttocks inwards to help support the abdomen. And let's listen to a sound. Continue to just breathe normally. Take a few more breaths and just give a listen. Maintaining our good posture, listening, and also being relaxed at the same time. So that all those things, our good posture, our listening, our relaxation, they all become like one. In other words, we're doing them at the same time, so they kind of go together. Let's add a little movement to it. So we're going to just begin by moving from side to side like this. I'm letting my foot lift off the floor a little bit. If it's hard to lift your foot up, just lift the heel up and leave the toes down. And we still want to lean a little. If you have arms on the chair, just be mindful of the arms. We don't want to bang into anything. Also, if you're sitting in a place where you have things near you on the sides, be careful not to bang into them. If you need more of a challenge, go slower and lift the feet a little higher. Go slower and lift the feet a little higher. You could even pause. You could even pause for a moment and see what it feels like oftentimes when we pause like this, our posture we lose the good posture. So we need to remember to sit up even a little taller, and then we come back down, we do the other side. So we want to be efforting here, maybe 50%, maybe 60%. If you're efforting almost everything you got, then it's too much. And you'll create tension in the rest of the body, places you don't want to create tension, and it becomes counterproductive. That's why we don't work at 80 and 90% in yoga. We have that balance. And think about, so we were talking before about that balance of the left and the right side. Think about the balance of ease and effort. And maybe that 50% effort leaves you 50% ease on the other side. It also makes it more pleasant. We don't, if things are really unpleasant when we exercise, it's unlikely that we're going to stay with it. And that's just, that's human nature. We don't continue to do things we don't like, which is good as long as you're liking stuff that's maybe good to do, and it's maybe good if you don't like the stuff that's bad for you. So let's sit up nice and tall, bring the palms together, and then inhale and sweep the arms up. So this is another one where if you've been sitting and you're tired of sitting, feel free to stand up if your balance is okay. And we're circling around here. So whether or not you're seated or you're standing, doesn't really matter. And see if you can keep the feet directly underneath the hips, or if you need a little bit more support for balance, maybe the feet a little bit further apart, but not super. We're not doing this yet. We may do that later. You could also traditionally, Tadasana, standing Tadasana is actually done with the feet together, with the outside edges parallel. So the heels are slightly apart and the big toes are touching. And notice here I have my shoes on. And the one thing that is nice, if you have any balance issues, if you have nice supportive shoes, especially if you have something with a good inner sole, and let's go the other way. It can be a nice way to practice because it supports the foot better and it gives us a little better balance, usually. Not always, but. So we're going the other way. We're inhaling up and exhaling down, and inhaling up and exhaling down, and inhaling up and exhaling down, and inhaling up and exhaling down. Inhale up one more time, and then come right in the center with the hands. And very gently, make sure they're lined up, and see if you can spread the fingers apart without creating any pain or discomfort. So for anybody who has any joint issues in the hands, and it's very common, we do so much with our hands and fingers, especially if you sit at the computer a lot. People have problems with the wrists and the hands and the forearms, even the elbows. See if you can line them up so they're even, and then gently press them together so it still feels okay. We want it to feel like they're even, and we want to feel like it's comfortable. So think about that 50% effort again, no more than 50%. Balancing, relaxing the shoulders at the same time. And then I'm going to lift my elbows up and down slightly. And this is going to create a little more stretching here on the back of the hand when we flex it would be like flexing the wrist like this. We're going to move the elbow up and then relax it down. Keeping the shoulders relaxed here. Keeping the shoulders relaxed. So when you lift the elbows up, don't let the shoulders ride up like this and lift the chin up. Keep the shoulders, or allow the shoulders to be down, and then start to lift the elbows. And if you get to the point where the shoulders start to lift, that's as high as the elbows go. And even if the palms come apart a little bit, it's okay. If you want more of a challenge, You keep the palms together. You press them together a little firmer, and you lift the elbows a little tighter, and perhaps even drop the hands down as the elbows come up. And then relax them. Try that a few times. So that's a bigger challenge here than the more flowing and graceful. So think about it as one being a little more freedom of movement, a little more opening, and the other being a little more more of a closed movement, perhaps. And then you have to decide which one you want to do. And that's where we have to, we have to think about it for a moment, and we say, oh, I'm going to try this one and see how it feels. And sitting up nice and tall, let's bring the hands back and sweep the arms open, cactus breath. So elbows no higher than the shoulders. Remember to keep the knees, sometimes when the knees kind of splay out to the side like this, keep the knees in. Thinking about that little bit of effort in the inner thighs. And you also may need to have a little effort going in the belly here. So if you find the belly tends to stick out, and for some people it will, when we need to corral the belly by moving the navel back. Moving the navel back. Let's do this. Let's actually activate the belly for a moment. So bring the fingers right on the belly. And then as you inhale, feel the belly get a little bigger. Feel the belly puff up. And then as you exhale, feel it going back. And if it's not going back, gently nudge it with the fingertips. It's almost like the skin here kind of contracts, kind of I think we've talked about it like a zipper. So when you zip something up, it squeezes together. And of course, when you open a zipper, it all opens and falls open. So think about squeezing, moving the navel back towards the spine, and then inhaling and releasing the belly and letting the breath bring the belly out. So stay with that for a few more breaths. Still sitting up tall, keeping the shoulders relaxed, the back of the neck is long, the feet are even on the floor. So we're keeping that balance. And now let's go back to cactus breath for a moment and use a little bit of your effort up here to keep a firmness in the belly. Think about moving the navel back maybe a half an inch or an inch to provide the firmness so that the belly's going to stay relatively flat. We're not going to let it move in and out so much for this. And then we're going to inhale and exhale. So it moves a little, but there's a firmness here. Keep the firmness in the belly. And then if you want, you can give yourself a little hug at the end of the exhalation. So we're sweeping the arms open and then back. And then come back. Let's do a little bit of work with the shoulders and the neck. We're gonna do work on our ears for a moment. We've done this before, where we start, and I'll move closer so you can see. We're going to give a little massage here for the ear, starting down at the earlobe, and just working up the outside of the ear. And then also think about squeezing and gently pulling the ear slightly. So there's no pain. I'm not creating any pain when I do this. It's, if you've ever made homemade pasta and you have to roll stuff, think about it like that. If you squeeze too hard, if you squeeze the pasta too hard, you end up with a flat, you end up with like a flat piece of something that's not so great. But if you squeeze it just the right amount, you end up with sort of this rounded, nicely shaped pasta. And then we're going to inhale, and we're going to sweep the arm out. And as we sweep the arm out, we're going to gently turn the head and then we're going to come back to the front. So inhale and exhale. And inhale. Notice that the face is turning opposite to the arm. So there's a nice opening. So please keep going. There's a nice opening that you feel between the collarbone and the front of the shoulder. So this part of the shoulder is opening right here, right across here. You'll also feel the shoulder blade going back. So as the arm comes out, the shoulder blade on this side is moving back towards the spine. And depending on how quickly you're breathing, you may be moving faster or slower. If you really slow the breath down, the movement will be slower. So we're timing the breath and the movement together. You may also find that when it's winter time like this, it can be nice to breathe a little faster. It helps to raise the body temperature a little bit. We have more air. The energy level goes up when we breathe faster. When we relax and breathe slowly, the body temperature tends to drop. And sitting up nice and tall, let's roll the shoulders up and back. And then a little backstroke. Starting to let the belly turn here. So go ahead if you want. As the shoulders move back, as my shoulder moves back, I let my head stay on top of my shoulder without turning the head here. If your neck is really good and you want a little bit more, you could turn the head with the shoulder going back. We always want to be careful, though, with the neck. It's the vertebra are the smallest and for many people quite sensitive. And sitting up nice and tall. Let's swim the other way. We'll crawl stroke here. So reaching out and across and down the opposite side. Out and across and down the opposite side. So I'm getting turning here just as if I was swimming. So you could even, if anybody likes to swim, imagine that you're swimming. Use your imagination. It's very powerful. You may have heard of something called mental rehearsal. I would say it's a common. I'd be surprised if almost every athlete does not use mental rehearsal. It was one of these things that, I don't know how long ago, maybe 20 years ago, it was relatively new, but people would practice in their minds, whatever it is, kind of like playing the piano. You've heard some people will actually practice in their minds when they don't have a piano to keep up their practice. Because there's actually a connection that happens when we mentally imagine it. It's for the brain and body, in some ways, it's like it really is happening. It's kind of it's a little weird and a little amazing at the same time. And sitting up nice and tall, and take a couple more cactus breaths here, but this time just letting the arms float out and then encircling yourself with a little hug at the end. See if it's a little easier now. We've had a little bit more opening in the shoulders and the neck. We're going to go down to the legs in a moment. And let's make sure you have support for the spine if you need it by using the back of the chair, or if you want more of a challenge, don't use the back of the chair. Scoot all the way forward so that just the sitting bones are on the edge of the chair. And it's a lot more challenging when you go to start lifting your leg up. Actually, let's do this. Let's do the ankles first. So I'm going to actually use the back of the chair for a little bit anyway. Because eventually you get tired. We're going to lift up both feet. Let's do the ankles here. Circling the ankles around. Let's add the wrists to it now. And then going the other way. You could just do the ankles if you wanted. You don't have to do the wrists and the ankles. And then back the other way. And then back the other way. And then resting the feet and rocking the feet. Rocking the feet. And then rocking the hands and the feet. So we do this. I'm a big fan of doing the hands and feet together because, our class is only an hour long and it's hard to fit everything in if you do everything individually. But it's okay if you just want to do one. And perhaps even lifting the chin up and down, letting the chin rock back and forth with the hands. You also may notice as the hands are rocking back and forth that the shoulder blades are moving. So I'll turn sideways so you can see. I'm rocking back and forth. And as my hands come back, my shoulder blades round slightly, and then they lift up. There's also, think about a lifting up of the heart. You'll notice that the pelvis is rocking slightly too. Pelvis is rocking slightly, and the back is flattening slightly, and then lifting up again. Trying to make a connection here so we really feel like the body is moving, even though things are moving not at the same, but there's a feeling of unity in the movement of the body. Like it's all connected into, it's almost like when you have gears and belts and things, when a machine, everything is connected and you move, kind of like if you remember that game Mousetrap, and everything's connected and it starts in one end and then it goes all the way down. So making sure that everything feels like it's connected at the same time. So that we end up doing, it feels like we're doing one giant movement instead of 3 or 4 separate small movements. And it feels different. So try that during your practice here. When we do multiple things, try to think of it that way as a one giant movement or one giant activity rather than a bunch of different ones. And the experience is a little different that way. We're going to lift the foot up and we're going to point and flex a few times. Trying to keep the toes pointed straight up and then straight ahead. And also the hip, knee, and ankle all line up as best you can. And then do the other side, please. And if you want, if you don't have if you have really good posture, you feel strong, you could do both feet at the same time. So feel free to modify. If you know what you can do, feel free to modify a little. So for those people who have come to a lot of classes, then it's an opportunity to try, because ultimately this is your own practice, and you have to, decide for yourself what you're going to do. And let's see, we're going to slide forward now, and we're going to do some circling, really warming the belly and the intestines and the whole lower torso, the core of the body. Warm it up as we move, we circle around. So you have a few choices here too. You could put the hands on the knees and you could circle the body around, letting the arms help guide the body. So there's this movement back where the arms straighten and lengthen. And then as they come forward, notice how the elbows, they're not exactly even. One bends and the other bends, and then they come back up. The other thing you could do is you could do some stirring if you wanted. So the next step would be this stirring movement. So there's no support from the arms, but notice the arms are moving. The arms are bending. So this will be a little more challenging. You may need to widen your stance and move your feet out a little bit from the chair too for support. We don't want to fall out of the chair. I want to make sure that when we come forward, we have our feet that we can press into the floor. And then the last one, so if you wanted to do even a little bit more effort, something required more effort, more core strength, more stability in the core, you could circle your arms around like this. So we recommend that for people who know that their core is they feel really, it feels strong. So when I do this, I can still keep my body lengthened. There's no support. I have no support for my arms here. If you need support, if you need to keep the body lengthened, if you're having trouble, bring the hands down to the knees and give it some support. And we're going to go the other way. Sorry, I went a little bit, forgot, we should have gone the other way. So you have really at least three things that you could do. Hands on the knees, stirring like this, or even swinging the arms around like this. Being mindful that if you're getting pain in any of these, then you need to make the movement smaller or go back to the other movement. So there shouldn't be any pain or discomfort here, especially things like in the lower back, in the hips, in the shoulders. And a couple more. We did a lot the other side, so I don't want you to be unbalanced. So this kind of exercise, let's sit up nice and tall. If you can remember, even just to do this circling like this every day, you'll start to firm up the abdomen more. And that will in turn make it a little easier as the days, or really as the weeks go by. You'll get stronger in the core, and that'll also help our posture. And let's go ahead and lift our foot up, like lift the knee up. Take the hands right behind and just give it a little extra. I'm going to go back and forth like this. Release, and then reach and lift up. So when I do this, I'd like to be able to keep the back relatively straight and tall. So as I lift up, if I start to collapse like this, then I've gone too far. I'm lifting up to the point where I can still keep my back straight. Or maybe straight's not the right word. I can still keep myself lifted so I'm not collapsing. So I'm still got my posture here. So that's how you can tell how high to lift your knee. I'm not trying to round and hold my knee like this. I'm trying to keep lifted and lift my knee up. If you wanted more of a challenge, you could even do it without the hands at all. Or you could just do it with one hand. And I guess if you wanted a super challenge, you could lift both legs like this. More like, it's hard. It's like boat pose. If you're familiar with boat pose, where you actually sit. Actually, let's try that. We're going to do half boat pose, half boat. So we're going to lift up like this, and I'm going to only lift up. I'm going to turn sideways. I'm going to only lift up so that I can still sit up tall. So please, this is important for this one. And then I'm going to extend the leg like this and come back. So try that a couple of times. Now for me, my hamstrings are very tight, so I don't really get my leg to extend all the way. So the higher you lift your leg, the more challenging it is to keep the body lifted. Got to keep firmness here in the belly and keep extending the spine up even as I lift my leg. And I don't want to get any pain. If you're getting pain or discomfort in the lower back, then don't lift as high. Maybe your foot is even down here. That's okay. And make sure you're using the back of the chair here for support if you need it. back of the chair for support. And let's do the other side. So we can reach behind the knee. We keep our good posture. We lift up nice and tall. We lift the knee up. Don't collapse the spine. Still nice, elongated spine. And then go ahead and extend. You can try that a couple of times. If you want even more of a challenge, you can hold the foot out like this, but keep lifted. If you can't keep lifted, then don't hold the foot out. Go back to this movement first. And if you work over time, you'll develop more strength and come on down. You'll develop more strength and be able to keep lifted and then extend the legs. And the final one, which we won't do, is you would actually lift both feet like this and extend both legs out. That's hard to do. It's a little easier to do on the floor, where you'd be sitting on the floor. So we won't do that, but sitting up nice and tall, it's inhale and sweep the arms, and then sweep, and nice open heart as the arms are circling around. Nice open heart. So we're gonna stand, or you can stay seated. And so let's start with standing mountain pose or seated mountain pose. So we're going to come back to mountain pose and a little bend in the knees. So remember, when we practice any of the standing poses that we do, we keep good alignment between the hips and the knees and the ankles. So I want to make sure my knees, and this is where that squeezing the thighs together comes in, or you can't really do this standing, but if you had a block or you have a rolled up towel, you can put the block or towel between the thighs to act like your fists when we were seated. If you're seated, of course, you can use your fists. And I'm going to bend and straighten. Bend and straighten. Notice my knees. When you look at me straight on, my knees do not go out to the side and they don't go in. They're nice and straight, and they only go as far as the toes. So when I sit down, I can still see my toes like this. So I'm giving a little squeeze on the inner thighs, and my alignment is the knees straight ahead. I'm also, ideally, I stand up nice and tall, and I do this with just feeling. So I don't look down. But I mean, sometimes I do look down because I need to. It's important. The alignment's really important. So I do sometimes look down, but after a while, you get so you can start to feel the proper alignment. And it may not be this particular class. It takes regular practice with looking, feeling. What does it feel like? And then after a while, you get so you can feel, we call that proprioception. You can feel where the body is in space. It's a skill, just like it's a skill that we learn. And let's see, standing up nice and tall. So let's, I want to do goddess pose but let's, we'll do that more towards the end. Let's step the feet apart like this. So you can also do this seated if you want, with the feet apart. And we're going to do triangle pose. We're going to extend the arms out like this. And then we're going to gently let the hand slide down the leg and then come back up. So letting the hand come down to the leg and then sliding. So with triangle pose, there is some bending of the torso, some curving in the torso, but what we're really looking for is this bending at the waist, or really where the top of the leg meets the waist is probably a little higher. Right at the top of the hip joint, this bending so that the torso is still relatively straight rather than curving like this. So I'm going to try that bending. Think about the bending coming here, letting it slide down. If you want more of a challenge, you can do it with the feet wider apart. If you need less of a challenge, a little bit less of a challenge, bring the feet a little closer together, and you could work with the hands like this. The one thing that's nice about the hands on the waist is I'm actually bending where the hands are. So I can feel myself bending at the spot where my hands are resting. And it gives me a little bit of feedback. And if you're in your chair, so if you're standing, you can continue, or you can stand up again and come back to mountain pose. If you're seated, you can have the feet out like this with the legs bent. You could even have the legs out like this with the legs straight, and it's the same thing like this, seated. It's helpful if you're going to be seated to be near the edge of the front of the chair so that your thighs are open, or there's space behind the underneath on the thighs. Like this. And then let's all come back together and take a couple of breaths, a couple of cactus breaths. We're going to do that one more time. It's nice to be able to do poses twice. The first time is often sort of a warm-up. We take it easy a little bit. We feel what the pose feels like. And then the second time, it's a little bit easier to settle in. And then, so I'm going to start out seated, but if you're standing, remember we step our feet apart. Same thing, seated, feet apart, arms out or arms on the waist. And then we're going to gently go to one side, inhale, come up. We're adding the breath to it this time. And then exhaling to the other side. So you can follow your breath here. Feel free to follow your breath. Inhaling to come up and exhaling to come down. You could also, if you wanted, you could leave the arms out like this in triangle and not slide it down the leg. It's a little more supportive with the hand on the leg and sliding it down the leg. You could even, if you wanted, if you have an extra chair, or you have your chair, you could move your chair so that when you go to the side, the hand can touch the chair like this for support. I would say if you're going to do that, you probably need two chairs because otherwise you'd have to move the chair back and forth. And let's come back up and come back to mountain pose. Make the balance the weight evenly on the feet. Balance the weight evenly on the feet, and let's gently bend the knees and straighten. So remember, this is the beginning of our chair pose. If you're seated, slide forward in the chair and bring the feet back slightly so that when you lean forward, you can really feel the weight in the feet. I'm not getting up out of the chair, but I'm coming forward so I can start to press the feet down with the thighs as if I was going to go up and down. And you might even notice that if you come forward a little, with a little momentum, your butt starts to lift out of the chair a little bit. But I want to keep it in contact with the chair because we don't want to be banging around on the chair. And then let's stand up nice and tall. We're going to do goddess pose. So it's similar to a triangle pose. We step the feet apart. And with goddess pose, we're going to start to bend the knees. I've got my feet turned out slightly, probably no more than 45 degrees. And then when I bend my knees, I want my knees the same as in the other poses. I want my knees to go in the same direction as the toes. So if I turned 45 degrees to you and pointed my foot at you, you'd see my knee bending just like in mountain pose. The knee is going in the same direction as the toes. But now I've turned my thighs out and my knees are going out. They're turned out and they're going out. I'm going to go up and down like this a few times. And notice I'm not going too far. And then I'm going to add the arms if I want. So like this. And then, actually, let's do it like this. Let's do open with the knees bent, and then come back and bring the palms to rest right in front. So we can go inhale. So we need firmness in the belly here too. Firmness in the belly. So think about moving the belly back slightly. Remember, if you need to, you can tap your belly to feel firmness. And if you're seated, it's the same. It's actually a little easier seated. The position is actually really nice seated because you're already down. And inhaling. And the alignment is the same. The knees are 45 degrees or less. The toes are 45 degrees lined up with the knees. If there's any pain in the back, in the hip joint, in the knee joint, then don't go out so far. Work the feet back until there's no pain or discomfort. It's not a stretch of the joints. We're not trying to stretch anything out here. We're trying to get a little more mobility. And then bringing the hands down, rolling the shoulders a few times. And let's do our balance pose. We're going to do tree pose today. So you'll have your chair handy if you're standing. And starting in mountain pose, standing up nice and tall, feeling balanced on the left and the right sides. Letting the arms hang down, letting the shoulders hang down. And then moving the shoulders back slightly. Not so much as we were doing before, but enough so there's a slight opening here in the top of the chest, where just below the collarbones. My collarbones are here. There's an opening right here underneath, just underneath the collarbones. You might even find that the neck, it's easier to lift and extend the neck when the collarbones are broadening like this. And then we're going to shift the weight over into one leg. It can be nice to pat the leg. You can pat the buttocks if you want. So there's firmness, and also firmness over here on the side and in the belly. And that's our support for when we turn the foot out. We'll start just by turning the foot out and lifting the heels up. Heel up like this, toes are flat, and just pausing there for a moment. Shifting more of the weight into the straight leg. So there's less and less weight there. And if you want, you can even experiment. You can just lift the toes off and see how that feels. And then go ahead and come back. We'll do the other side. But first come back to find balance in your pose, in your mountain pose. And then pat the other leg, pat the other buttocks. You can even pat the belly a little. So we have firmness, firmness, firmness. Foot's pressing down as I turn the opposite leg out. So the turning actually comes up in where the thigh connects with the pelvis. You could even put your hands on your belly. And I can feel this is a little flatter than it would normally be because I'm activating my abdomen, but I'm still breathing. There's just not as much back and forth in the belly. And then I'm going to come back and then pause there for a minute. Find that balance again. Left and right side, feel balanced. And let's do the other side. So you can do exactly what we did before, or you can bring the sole of the foot. You can step out like this, come on to the toes, or you can bring the sole of the foot. I'm going to slip my shoe off just because it's easy for me to do it. If you have tie shoes on, then you're probably going to want to just leave your shoe on. Also for support. So the sole of the foot is resting on the inside of the thigh, or if you're seated, the sole of the foot will be on one of the outside of the chair legs. So standing up nice and tall. And then if you want, you can add the arms. Remember to breathe. Belly is firm. Buttocks are firm. Spine is extending up. And raise your gaze and raise your thoughts. And then we'll go ahead and come back down. And come back to that middle ground, balanced, feel balanced first. Forget about the next one. Don't think about the next pose yet. Think about being in mountain pose, feeling balanced. Activating, bend the knees slightly, straighten the legs, thighs move back, buttocks, the gluteal muscles firm up, the belly firms up, and then shift the weight into the other leg. Remember, you can pat the leg if that helps, to remind the leg to firm up, and then turn the opposite leg out, lift the heel, find the balance there, and then if you want, you can add the inside of the sole, the foot on the inside of the calf, the inside of the shin. So firm the abs, so compact the hips, the buttocks, the gluteal muscles are firmed up. Extend the spine. Then if you want, you can add your arms. Remember, you've always got your chair, so you don't have to lean on the chair or hang on the chair. Even just touching the chair makes balance so much easier. Just touching with the fingertips makes it easier. And then raise your gaze and raise your thoughts. Remember to breathe. You can come down whenever you want. It's not, I was going to say it's not a race. It's not a contest. It's not a contest. And that's really important. That's one of the things that I really like about yoga is that it's not, the only contest really is with yourself. There isn't anybody else to contest with. And let's stand up nice and tall in mountain pose. Roll the shoulders back. And then this time we're going to interlace. We're going to interlace the fingers. Or, well, there's a few choices. So we can interlace the fingers like this to help hold the arms back and open the heart, open the chest. Or you can work with the hands on the hips like this. Or you can work with the hands. I'll turn so you can see. Fingers are pointing down. So notice my fingers, my buttocks are here. The base, the beginning of the fingers is actually on the top of the buttocks, pointing down. And what I like about this actually is if you very gently, if you bring the belly in, you get a little bit of almost a dropping of the buttocks and the tailbone down slightly, and lengthening of this area right here. So instead of this area being kind of bent and brought together with the fingers there, it lengthens, and we get lengthening in the lower part, this lumbar spine, and that helps us to extend the spine up with a little bit more ease. So as I allow this area to lengthen, think about bringing the belly in slightly. So it's almost like we're bringing everything a little bit closer together here, and it's letting us extend the spine up with a bit more ease, keeping the face and the eyes soft. But this is nice too, interlacing the fingers like this. So whatever way you pick, we want it to be comfortable. We want it to feel like there's a connection between the feet and then the movement up of the body and the opening of the shoulders, and the face and eyes are soft. Now let's go ahead and release, and we'll swing the arms. So coat sleeves here. So back and forth. Notice how the heel's lifting up on one side, and the knees are slightly bent, or they're soft. So if I come back to the middle and I bounce a little bit like this, I don't want the knees to be locked. I want them to feel kind of soft and springy. So springy knees is good. It means that our muscles are a little more responsive. It also means that there's less potential strain on the joint. If our legs are locked, oftentimes the muscles are at their limit and the joints are at their limit. So rather than using when we keep the legs slightly bent, we're using the musculature and not the joints to limit our mobility. So we use the contraction and release of the muscles. And you could even swing the hands like this. This could be nice too. So you could work with the hands down like this, or you could work with the hands swinging up. If they're swinging up, you may get a little bit more movement across the belly like this. So that diagonal movement that we talk about sometimes from the hip to the opposite shoulder. And then let's come back and slowly come back down. And we're going to sit back down. And sit up nice and tall. I'm going to go from side to side. So we did this one at the very beginning. We're going to do it again. See if it feels any different. It may not feel better. It may be tired. But it may feel better. It's kind of, we're all different. So we sort of have to feel, you may have a little more control of the muscles if you're not too tired. So after we engage muscles for a while, after we get everything moving, sometimes they're more responsive. You may also find that as the day goes on, oftentimes things will move more freely. You know, we're asleep and we're not moving very much. The body tends to become a little more rigid, especially in the cold weather. And let's sit up nice and tall in our mountain pose, and we're going to settle into Shavasana. Actually, before we do that, let's do this. Let's warm down a little bit. So we're going to inhale and exhale. So you could start out a little bit faster with the inhalation and the exhalation. And then as you start to settle into the breath and the movement, allow the breath to become slightly slower. Slow the pace down. Relax the pace. You could even add a sigh. Let's go the other way. Letting the pace slow down even a little more. And one more time. And if you need a little bit more warmth, if you removed any clothing, you may want to put it back on. Blanket can be really nice. Just putting a blanket over the covering the legs with a sort of a drape of some kind is nice when we settle into Shavasana, or even making a little cave for yourself. So if I have a blanket like this, perhaps it sounds silly, but I've done this a lot with small children that have a lot of trouble sitting still, and will make a cave with a blanket. And it's amazing how long that they will go in this cave and stay seated, because it's so, I don't know, there's something about it. Maybe it's like really being, when you're in a cave, when you feel like things are cozy, it makes it easier to relax. The breath slows down, you feel safer. So even just a blanket like this, or a blanket in the front, this is nice too. Anything to feel a little cozier, especially when it's cold, or even a hood. If you have a hood, Might want to put it up. That's nice. Finding your most comfortable position in the chair. So probably sitting against the back of the chair. And you may want to slide back a little bit until you can feel the buttocks at the back of the chair, and then begin to sit up. And if you need lumbar support, you could take a small pillow and put it between the lumbar spine and the back of the chair. Resting the hands either in the lap or on the legs. Letting the spine extend up. So there's this feeling of lengthening of the spine, but at the same time, there's a relaxation in the body going on, a softening of the shoulders, relaxing of the face and the eyes, releasing of the jaw and the tongue and the throat. So we'll formally end the class very soon. And I'd like to, I guess it's probably formally it's time to end the class, but we'll continue on for a couple minutes together for anybody who wants to stay. And you can even stay beyond that in your Shavasana. After the meeting ends, feel free to stay as long as you want and continue to work with the breath, work with whatever meditative technique, whatever relaxation techniques you normally use. The breath is such a good way to relax and to meditate. Feeling the breath, filling the belly, and then feeling the breath, releasing and softening, relaxing, leaving the belly. And as we exhale, that's our cue to soften the body, beginning all the way up at the crown of the head and allowing the body to soften all the way down to the toes. You can go step by step, as if you're working your way down from the crown of the head, down to the eyes and the face, the ears, the neck, softening the shoulders, releasing the arms and the hands, relaxing the heart, the shoulder blades, the rib cage, front and back, the belly, the lower back, softening the buttocks and the hips, relaxing the thighs, the knees, letting go of the shins and calves, relaxing the ankles and the feet and the toes. You might even try that a couple of times, 2 or 3 times even, until you feel like the body is nicely relaxed. And it can be, as you go down from the top to the bottom, it doesn't have to be the same things that you think about each time. Just let the mind scan the body as you go down. And then when the body feels relaxed enough, softened enough, but of course at the same time, still sitting up with pretty good posture. When the body feels relaxed enough, you can work with the breath, feeling, concentrating, focusing on the breath. Feeling the breath fill the belly, fill the ribs, fill the heart and the chest. And then feeling the softening as we exhale, the chest, collarbones, the side ribs, and the belly. And then we begin again. Accompanying each exhalation with a softening and a relaxation in the body. A wave of relaxation from the crown of the head down to the feet. Perhaps a gentle lifting and extension of the spine and heart as we inhale. Not too much effort on the inhale, though. So we'll continue for about another minute, then I'll tap the bell once, and that will formally end our class. Please feel free to continue for another 5, 10, or even 15 minutes if you so desire. Namaste.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another gentle yoga session with Keith Beasley. This is Batya Blumenthal, branch supervisor of the Putterham Library. I wanted to thank the Friends of the Brookline Library for sponsoring this program and programs like it. I also wanted to recognize our community partners, Brookline Interactive Group, who streamed this program through Facebook, YouTube, and local channel 3.